topic of this workshop is gratitude and forgiveness. Our speakers are Richard G. and Tanya J. So with that, I give you Richard G.
I'm a grateful recovering addict named Richard G.
Hey, Richard.
I'm from the Marietta area. My clean date is May 6, 2015. And it's an honor to be asked to share this moment with y'all. Grateful for great gratitude and forgiveness. If it's all right, I'd like to start with forgiveness. I think that has been integral in my own recovery. UC Berkeley defines forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve it. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning or excusing offenses. I thought that was powerful. And page 12 of the basic text says the program teaches us a spirit of forgiveness. And so, when I think about forgiveness, I think that there's a few different levels of it. We all have these big things, these big moments that that we've had to forgive or still need to forgive, and like for me, I'm working on some of those. I have these big things. In particular, it would be my kids' mom and I was probably one of the biggest things for me, and struggles for me, and continues to be in ways, areas of forgiveness that I can work out. It's an opportunity to work out for me. When she and I split up, I was very resentful about it, very bitter about it. And I acted out. I wasn't in recovery at all at the time. And so, I went deeper into my addiction, to medicate and try to cope with what was happening. Things that were beyond my control. I couldn't, I just couldn't manage it. And so I struggled with that for a long time. When I finally came into recovery, I continued to struggle with that. And still do in ways. The relationship didn't automatically just get better because I got clean. I got clean in jail and in treatment. So that was like she was very skeptical when I got out. And I resented that because, gosh, I'm doing right now. And I worked through a lot of that with my sponsor, and as I kind of came to this place of forgiving her, the relationship started to get better. It doesn't mean that I forget, right? It doesn't mean that what happened was okay. It just means that I'm okay now, Mm-hmm. And that was like a major thing for me. And it was amazing to see how when I changed, things got better. I wanted her to like acknowledge what she had done. I wanted her to be accountable, right, for her part in it, right? And I had made some of those amends in a letter form, and even untrained amends, I'll call them. So I was willing to account for what I had done. I acknowledge that. But I was very, very bitter about it, and it kept me from growing. And we all have those big things that have happened to us that we are bitter about or sore about, that we carry. And so that was, when I thought about forgiveness, those were the big things. And I was like, well, there's every day there's these little opportunities as well to forgive. In my recovery, before recovery, I'd never thought of myself as being some kind of like perfectionist by any means, But when I started looking at things at myself, I started thinking, well, maybe that's a thing for me, like performance-based, performance-driven, perfectionism, and that's why I struggled. If something wasn't right, nothing was right. Do you know what I mean? And so, by allowing this, to forgiving myself and other people, and I put expectations on other people that they've got to perform, they've got to show up. You know what I mean? You got to be here. And allowing people to be human and make mistakes and forgive them for that regardless, if they're aware that I'm crazy, you know what I'm saying? And and it's there's an expression, death by 1,000 cuts, and so if I'm like holding these little things against everybody, I'm just so deep-seated with resentment and bitterness, and then I find that there's no space left for joy and gratitude, humility, and then I think the last dimension that I thought about was the forgiveness of self, and I can so still do this, man. I look back on things I've done, especially like to my kids and my family and things like that, and that's probably some of the hardest for me, is to forgive myself for it, and I can't do it all at once, so it's just a little bit here and a little bit there, and I'm making progress. I thought about, this topic, so forgiveness is the cure for resentment, when I'm able to let that go, right? Page 97 says resentments are reliving past experiences again and again and again and again, and that's what I do, So when I'm able to forgive myself and other people, I'm able to move forward. I can progress forward with my life, my recovery, and it's freeing. And the thing about forgiveness too is it's for myself. It helps me get better with me in life, and it's empowering that I'm able to do that and move forward. Gratitude is the quality of being thankful regardless, readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. And in my recovery so far, I've been able to experience great gratitude, and it comes in random moments, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Other times it's very subtle for me, and I'm grateful that I'm not the vengeful, bitter, hateful person that I was, just so wrapped up in self-pity and retribution and things like that, that especially towards my kid's mom, that was such a big deal for me. It's really not a big deal today. I'm very, very grateful for that. And it came in a way I never thought it would. I kept waiting for her to acknowledge it, and she hasn't. And I don't. I'm okay if she never does. That's not the point. This is about me. and it's what recovery has absolutely shown me. The relationship with the kids isn't what I would hope it would be, but it's not bad. I get in my head about it, and I make it some kind of way. But when I do get in touch with the kids, or they live states and states away, so it's very difficult sometimes. But they do call. I'll get a random picture of some game that my son's playing or whatever, and that's it. It's just, right, but he thought of me to send it to me. And I can be grateful for that. I can pick that up and fill myself with that, rather than, well, why didn't he say, hey, why didn't he answer the phone when I called? You know what I mean? And just going on and on and on, and like cherry picking this junk that I used to get high over. And justify doing worse things over. It's just a tremendous amount of gratitude that I'm not that person today. It's unbelievable. Even before that fallout, that was like a very pivotal moment in my life, where before I was in active addiction, I was using. She and I kind of got together. It was like this build up. We split up, and I just kind of plumbed. It was kind of like I went up just a little bit higher to jump, swan dive just a little further. And I'm actually in a much better place in life, in all aspects of life, than I've ever been, which is a miracle in and of itself. That relationship, like I said, has turned around a lot. My kids, I have two, a boy and a girl, and they love me very, very, very much. It doesn't always seem that because of the expectations I put on how a 9 and a 10-year-old, 11-year-old is supposed to love and what that's supposed to look like, and you know what I mean? And it's all about me. So I still get super selfish. I have to remember, that I'm in a place of recovery and allow people to be where they are. And if they are mad at me, that's all right. I helped create that situation. And we'll work towards mending any of those things as when the opportunities come. I'm grateful that they're healthy and that they have a good mom. She loves them. I used to never be able to say that. I didn't have anything good to say. But she really is. And even in the way she treated me, it was in the protection of those kids. She was concerned for them, and rightly so. Rightly so. But Narcotics Anonymous has given me a program of recovery, a life that I'm very grateful to live each day out of. My worst day is light years ahead of the days that I've lived in active addiction. I still struggle with fleeting thoughts and the temptations that come from my past and things like that. But I have a network today, and I get on the phone, I go to a meeting. I kind of taken a break a little bit from step work. I've been writing on steps recently, which has been, my sponsor will probably be glad to hear. And, I'm active in my recovery. And I'm so grateful for that. Being here and being asked to participate kind of quickened some things in me. I needed this so badly. I had moved to a new area and so much, all this new stuff, and like trying to transplant, and it was a struggle, and like I had kind of fallen off on meetings. I started going. I got asked to this, and then that kind of spurred some little fire in me, and I started getting more involved in the group. I've got like a permanent service role in my home group now, and just my whole attitude has kind of like lifted me up a lot, you know. And I mean, so grateful to be a member of Narcotics Anonymous. My name is Richard G. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker for this workshop is Tanya J. from Snellville, Georgia.
Hi family, my name is Tanya. I'm a blessed recovering addict. And it's truly an honor and a privilege anytime anyone asks you to come and share your experience, strength, and hope. I was supposed to chair the meeting, and then now I'm speaking, so okay, God. It was funny when Megan called me to ask me to chair the workshop, because forgiveness is one of the spiritual principles that I still struggle with. I've been here for a while. My clean date is February 25th, 1991, so I've been clean 28 years. When I first came here, I was 25 years old, and when I got here, there was nothing here but dope fiends with them big hands. And they scared me, because I was just 25. I came in here with a business suit, an attaché case, a college degree, and I just kept sitting around, and I asked myself, why am I here? Now, I knew why they were there, because, you know, they had problems. But I couldn't understand why I was there until I kept coming. I'm so grateful for the time that I did get clean, because at that time, them dope fiends didn't play with us. They let us know that our life was on the line. And they also let us know that we didn't have all day to get ourselves together. That there were people that were out there hurting just like we were hurting, and it was important that we begin the process of repairing our lives so that we could free other people. And that's where the steps came in. My first year of recovery, they didn't have us go right to the steps. The first year, the first 90 days, they had us go to open meetings so that we could learn NA language, find out what the program was all about. And if, in fact, we ascribed to the philosophy of Narcotics Anonymous, then they asked us then to start going to closed meetings. And closed meetings was really where we did the work. That's where we talked about the steps and the tradition, because the steps and traditions are for addicts and addicts only. It's not for everybody. You know, we'll understand, you know, why you stole a TV. We'll understand why you slept with your sister, your brother, but everybody's not going to understand that. And there's a time and a place for everything. And when you come in here, when you're in certain meetings like closed meeting, we understand why you did it. And we understand the purpose of your sharing. You know, many of us live with shame-based feelings. And we're not here to talk about all the good things that we like. I'm not here because I was a nice addict. I got here because I had an inability to accept personal responsibility. And so I did some things that I wasn't too proud of. And as a result, I was infested with guilt and shame. And I thought I would never be someplace where I could share about something like that. And so I thought that I would have to keep using and using and using, because that's what you do. You have that thought, you go get high. Guess what? You don't have that thought anymore. And so when I looked and I reflected on my life, the beginning process for me to heal, it started with the fourth step. You know, the third step helped me to make a decision that I was going to trust this force that was working in my life way before I got here. It talked about that in our literature, about this driving force that brought me to Narcotics Anonymous. It brought me to a special place that was going to help me. And they brought me amongst a group of dope fiends that was going to help this crackhead get better. And I didn't know how they were going to do it, because I was sitting there and I was saying, I ain't do that. When they be sharing, I'd be like, I ain't do that. And then I'd be sitting there, no wonder why you here, because you did that. And my sponsor heard me say that one day. And she said, come in. And she had me to bend down, and I did. And she said, Miss, got your shit together? People who got their shit together don't come to Narcotics Anonymous. Fucked up people do. And then she said, welcome. And so I learned right then and there, very early on in my recovery, not to judge and not to compare. If I don't identify with anything about you, one of the things that I identify is your pain. I know what it took for you to get here. I know what it took for me to get here. So it's real important for me that I had to learn to come in here, do the work, and help another person. And they emphasized that early on. I didn't get clean. God didn't choose me to get clean for me to come in here and start fucking with y'all. He got me clean so that I could carry a message, get a message, and to help the next addict, that's whether they're inside the rooms or outside of the room. And one of the ways that I did that, I had to do the work. I had to go in and dissect my thinking. You know, we great ones for manipulating the truth. And I had to get a sponsor who was going to help me to decipher between the chaos that was in my life, what was true and what was not true. And that was that fourth step. So God, in his love and infinite way, what he did was he allowed me to begin working on me first. He said, Tanya, I want you to tell me everything that you think that has happened in your life that has caused you to use drugs. And I began to write. And I thought it wasn't going to take long because it was your fault, this one's fault, my parents' fault, who never did drugs. I thought it was society's fault, all these faults, and I just kept on writing. I thought I would only write a little bit. Back then they gave us those little composition notepads with the little red line on the side. And I started writing, and the more I wrote, the more started being revealed. See, whenever it's that time for you in your life, God will be with you in that process, and you'll find yourself writing against your own will, telling stuff on yourself that you didn't think you would ever tell. And I started writing, and then God said, I need you to share it with this woman that you picked. And I didn't pick her, you know, back then they gave you your sponsor. They gave you what you call an interim sponsor, someone just to help guide you. And I met this woman, and my sponsor was a white woman. I was a black girl from New York. My sponsor was a white dope fiend from the Lower East Side. And when I got there, what I'm telling you, this woman was so kind to me. She was the most kindest woman that I ever met. But I had a secret. And I was afraid to talk with my sponsor. I went to her house. She had that little IKEA furniture. You know, back then, them dope fiends didn't have a whole lot. But I'm going to tell you something. They had integrity. They had character. They had a willingness to serve you and to help you through that process. And I remember going to her house, and I remember she said, Tanya, what's the matter? I told her I was frightened. She said, you look frightened. She said, well, what are you afraid of? And I couldn't really tell her. And then eventually I said, I'm afraid. And she said, what are you afraid of? I said, I'm afraid that I'm going to hurt you. And she said, you hurt me? I said, yeah, me hurt you. She said, and how do you plan to hurt me? Or why do you think you're going to hurt me? I said, because where I come from, we rob white people. We don't socialize with them. And I thought that there was going to be something in my addict behavior that was going to destroy my relationship with this woman who had grown to love me. See, it talks about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm talking about, you know, Dr. Jekyll been left and Mr. Hyde took over. And I didn't want to tell this woman these unsavory things about this young lady that she saw standing before her. She said, oh, so you going to hurt me? I said, yeah. She said, okay. She poured me some coffee, stirred it up, went in her room, came back. She came back with this big hat box, and she put it there on the table. And then she pulled it out, and when she pulled it out, she went inside there, and there was this big, thick manuscript. It was about 51 pages in there, and she told me to read it, and I read it. And when I started reading it, my mouth kept opening wider and wider. It was my sponsor's felony arrest record. My sponsor was a violent predicate felon from New York City. And she said, so you still think you're going to hurt me? And all I kept saying to myself is, oh shit, this bitch know where I live. And she said, do you want to get stuck on my whiteness or do you want to recover? We never had that conversation ever again. And I'm telling you, this woman loved me, and she guided me through this program for my first 10 years. And then my sponsor, I came down to Georgia because I was going to commit a murder-suicide. I was going to kill my ex, and then I was going to kill myself because I was an officer, and officers don't go to jail. We work in jails. And because of my own inability to protect myself, my mate had infected me with the virus. And I was angry because he didn't give me a choice and he didn't give me a chance. But y'all told me to stay away from people, places, and things. You can't serve two masters, and you just can't do it. And either you're going to be inside Narcotics Anonymous or you're going to be outside there. I was afraid of the dope fiends in here that liked me, so I thought I would stick with my mate that I had been with from 10 to 33. But he had some unsavory behavior. And I was very angry because I wasn't one of those girls. Now, I would have been okay if I was one of those streetwalkers with the black feet and the turned over shoes, because that comes with the territory. I went to work, I came home, I took care of my child, and I loved him despite him being an addict. And so when he infected me, I was angry because this wasn't supposed to happen to me, not a college degree. It's supposed to happen to them girls. And maybe if I was out there tricking and hoeing, it would have been more acceptable for me to accept it. But to come home and my mate do something like that and to rob me of the benefits of life. And back then I was afraid. But I thank God for the other women who had the courage to come in here, both the men and women, because back then they told their stories. They told about the horrors of their addiction. And in telling their stories, they allowed themselves to reveal the things about them so that the next addict would know how to deal with it. And so when it happened, it wasn't about, I wanted to die, I didn't want to use. And I remember the stories, and I remember who to call, and I called them, and one girl said to me, Ty, won't you tell me everything that you feel, that you feel about it? And she said, I told her everything, and she said, oh, Tanya, you'll always get a man, don't worry about it, you're a cute girl, you'll get it. Listen, they don't care. She said half the time they don't care. But at that point I was so young and I couldn't see the forest from the trees. I will tell you that I don't have an issue with that. I've dated, I've been married, in the process now of divorcing. Again, same man. One of the things I had to forgive myself is the fact that I have expectations of people. And let me tell you something, sometimes we hear about the literature in here and it talks about that we shouldn't expect. That's what people hear. That's not what the literature says. It tells us don't put unrealistic expectations of people. You can expect things of other people. I expect that if I put $1,000 on this table and there's a newcomer, that newcomer is going to take my money. But I don't expect if you've been here for 20 years and you say you're working on yourself, I don't expect you to steal from me. I expect when I go to work, when I give my boss 40 hours of work, I expect at the end of the week to get paid. So don't let people tell you that you can't expect things. I expect if we're in a fellowship of being clean, I expect you to be clean and to work towards that. So one of the things that I had to forgive myself is I had to forgive myself in a lot of areas, and one of the things is sometimes what we do is that we love this program so much that we want and we believe that everybody should have it. I had to forgive myself for these high expectations that I have of people. I had to learn to forgive myself for contracting my illness, right? Because I was very angry with me. Because I should have left him. I had to forgive myself and take responsibility. I learned that you know what, I don't get high and I shouldn't have been dealing with someone who did. I had to forgive myself and to understand that even in recovery, even in relationships, right, people have a right to move on. And so do I. I had to forgive myself and I had to understand, like my husband and me are now going through a divorce, not for the first time, not for the second time. We're going through a divorce for the third time. I had to forgive myself in the fantasy that I have as a woman of marriage, because I love marriage. My parents have been married for over 57 years. I have siblings, it's 9 of us, and about 5 of them that are still married have been married all throughout their time. And I believe in marriage. But my husband won't do the work. I have to come in here and tell you at 28 years where I feel that at this point in my life it should be downhill, things should be going smooth. I live a good life, I want to say that. I have a beautiful home. I've had some great accomplishment. I retired from my job. I got another job, right? I travel all over Narcotics Anonymous to carry the message. I have great friends. I stay in step work. I have sponsees. I have a sponsor. Like, this has been my greatest dream. And marriage was also one of my greatest things. I ascribe to marriage. I think it's a wonderful thing. And I do the work to be married. Like, I know that I'm marriage material. I don't look at no little wounded bird because I'm in Narcotics Anonymous, because you got to watch that. Sometimes people will sit up there and act like, the men sometimes will sit up there and act like, oh, because they don't deal with girls in recovery. No, because if you deal with us, you know you're going to get a recovering woman, and we're going to spot your bullshit. So you'll go get those little earthlings out there, and you'll try to make it seem that she's so more greater than we are, because you know we suffer from low self-esteem and low self-worth. But I'm here to tell you, don't let nobody rob you of that. I look at my accomplishments, and as a person, a woman that's been in recovery, and listen, I've been in here a long time. I'm nothing like that girl that came through these doors. I am a commodity. And I have a right to change my mind. And I have a right to be loved and treated with the utmost respect. And my gratitude shows in the NA way when I care and I share my story with other women and men by letting you know that no matter what, don't you let nobody rob you of the benefits that this program has to offer. Don't let nobody kill your dreams. It doesn't matter who you are. I've accomplished so much being here. And I'm glad that I came at the time that I came here. You know, I'm one of those old timers. I have very little tolerance for bullshit. I understand that people have their process, and I'll let you proceed. But process means to move on. And we have a responsibility to come in here and to do the work and to love one another. You know, it has changed. The fellowship has changed. And sometimes we're kind of cold. We be like, I got mines, and, you know, motherfucker, you get yours. You know, the best way you can. And I'm here to tell you that's not what we're about. We're about love. And injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. So when I see somebody not being kind to someone else, I make sure I extend myself and be kind. That's the gratitude. My final gratitude is that I'm able to care and to share the NA way, not Tanya's way, the NA way. And what it tells us that it doesn't matter even for the person that's the constant relapser, that they can come in and out of this room. We hope that they stay, but if they don't, it's okay. Our job is to open our arms up and to continue to love them. I went to a workshop last night, and it was on recovery and relapse. And some of the people who had relapsed and the shame that they felt in coming back and how they felt unwanted. You know, that's what we do. We get high. Ain't no question. That's what we like. We like to get high. It is strange for us not to be getting high. You know, it's so funny when I talk with my family, they say, wait a minute, now explain this to me. So you get on a plane to drive 500 miles somewhere or to fly someplace, to go to a hotel, to sit down with people and drink coffee all night long and listen to each other tell these horrific stories and to say how they stay clean. I said, yep, that's about it. It's a healing in here. And so my gratitude is shown by my ongoing continuance to come to these meetings despite how I feel, despite how dark things may look. Because there's always sunshine at the end of the darkness. And I look at life as a train going into a tunnel. And the tunnel is dark. And I don't have a flashlight and I don't have all these things, but going through that tunnel, I'm fearful. I don't know what to expect through the tunnel, but I know as I keep going through the tunnel and challenging my fears and my phobias without a drink or without a drug, I begin to feel an array of feelings and emotions. And as I keep traveling throughout that tunnel, when I get to the other side, I find that there is light. You are the light. You are the ones that help us one day at a time to stay clean. I couldn't have did this by myself. In closing, I want to say that, Richard, you just taught me something as an old timer, listening to the newcomer, because you explained exactly what forgiveness is. It doesn't mean that you have to forget what happened, but you got to forgive. And you got to show mercy to people, because God at some point in your life is going to show you grace. And when you don't do that, the universe will respond back to you the same way you respond to it. So if you want kindness, work on being kind. They used to tell me in closing that you always pray for the same person, what you want to happen in your life if you were placed in that same situation. And it's hard at first. And I remember this young lady and I got into an altercation, and I wasn't too proud of it because after many years, the bitch got out. She got out without my permission, and before I knew it, I knocked the girl into the counter. I wasn't proud of that, especially after being here for a long time. And it was too late. And she called the police, and I went to jail for 2 hours. And I was very angry because I know that she provoked a situation. She didn't provoke me hitting her, that was me. And I take full responsibility for it. But she didn't think that God was going to give me what God was supposed to give me, and what she did is she called my job and said I pulled my gun out on her. Thank God my gun was at work. It was very difficult for me to make an amends to her, because it talks about there will be times when we have to make amends to someone who we believe have harmed us. And I cried. My sponsor would tell you, I thought I was walking like to a guillotine, because I had to make amends despite what she did. And when I got there, I thought that after I said what I said, I thought she was going to turn around and say, and I'm sorry too. She said, okay, thank you. And I went back to my room and I cried. But I did what I needed to do. And so when you shared what you shared, despite what they do, you do it. And let their conscience be their guide. And even though I didn't feel good that day, I felt better, because God will charge you the longer you're here to do the right thing and be that power of example even when you don't want to. I thank God for Narcotics Anonymous. And once again, I thank God for you. Thank you for allowing me to share.